Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Tell Show. I'm Isaiah Bell,
I'm Barb Walter.
and I have been thinking about this particular topic for a while. And it's interesting because I sometimes am conflicted, especially during election season, of um, talking negatively about the Democratic Party. But I do think that in order to have any fair discourse, that you should be able to call out your own side's mistakes just as much as you call out a side that you don't agree with's mistakes.
And you should tell our viewers your background with the Democratic Party because you have worked on many campaigns.
Yes. So I um, have worked on several campaigns as a campaign finance director in national campaigns for the past years and years and years.
All on the
Um,
Democratic side.
yes. Although I was tempted at one point to see if I could infiltrate, but I was like, no, you want to do this the right way. Um, but with that being said, I there's a saying that Democrats fall in love and Republicans fall in line.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the Democrats cut off our nose to spite our face.
Yeah.
And that has not worked out for us very well. And so, in my opinion, there are a select few at the top of the Democratic Party that are really sort of orchestrating and pulling the strings of how the Democratic Party moves.
Chuck Schumer. Oh, Hakeem
Nancy
Jeffries.
Pelosi, yes.
Nancy Pelosi, yes.
And I think that it's time that we really take a look at what it is, because what we're doing is not working.
Yeah.
Besides in states that are, extremely blue, where there's really not a chance of a Republican incumbent, a Republican challenger unseating a Democrat. But outside of that, we're not doing well, and especially in purple states. And when you look at the last election, the purple states are what took Trump over the top.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about, I think the first thing that comes to mind is sort of the moral high ground that the Democratic Party feels that it has to be on when it comes to any sort of scandal or things that they feel like don't represent our party well. So I wanted to start the conversation thinking about that, so that maybe we can talk to our viewers about what is the right conversation to be having when something isn't necessarily in alignment with what the Democratic Party believes to be the moral place to be in.
Oh, there is so much to talk about here. We're both Democrats. I'm a lifelong Democrat, except in my very first election when I was 16 years old in 1980, I voted for Ronald Reagan. It is, all I can say is both my parents were lifelong Republicans, and it was, most people vote the way their parents voted, and I did in that very first election. But since then, I have been a Democrat. So there's a bunch of things that we know from political science research. One of them is that if you look at democracies that decline, most people tend to focus on the strong man, the strong person who's doing the decimation, the Viktor Orbáns or their Erdogans or the Donald Trumps. But the reality is the countries, the democracies that actually decline and decline significantly need the help of the opposition. They need the opposition to be either complicit or quiet or risk averse or weaklings. And the Democratic Party of the United States is like that today.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think of the Democratic Party, and again, I've been a Democrat for the vast majority of my life, and I believe in the basic principles and mission of the Democratic Party. I think most Americans are better off under Democrats. When I think about the Democratic Party today, it literally makes my blood boil for lots of different reasons. Let's start with the reasons why it makes your blood boil.
Because I mean, I think one of the biggest things that stands out to me is the double standard. When I look at what the American public has shown that they are comfortable digesting, when I look at Clarence Thomas being accused of sexual assault, when I look at Donald Trump being accused of sexual assault, when I look at people in the Republican Party who have been accused of assault, which is something that is horrific and heinous and should not be accepted. The conversation is always, we have to let the process play out. Mm-hmm. Everyone in America is supposed to be someone who is innocent until proven guilty. In the Democratic Party, that is not the case. Mm-hmm. In the Democratic Party, if there's even a hint of impropriety, it is, we have to get rid of this person. We're making the judgment before an investigation is completed. We're making the judgment before a trial occurs. And I don't understand it.
Yeah. We're in a moment in time when we're defending America's democracy. Mm-hmm. And this is a fight. This is a fight. And if you insist on being the Eagle Scout and always like, oh, we can't do that. That would be an impropriety, or we haven't done that in the past. What would that mean? We have to take the high road all the time. Your opponent will use this to their advantage, and they will literally dismantle democracy before your eyes. So this notion that we're always going to take the high road under all conditions can actually be anti-democratic. It could mean that you are actually not fighting for the thing that you claim you really, really care about. And if you're not willing to fight for it, then the other side is going to take it from you.
This is reminding me of an old saying, and it is that you can never win using the tools of the master. Essentially, your slaves and their master.
Yeah.
And I think that is true. I think that you improve upon the tools of the master. Yes. And I think that is something that the Republican Party has perfected. Yeah. Anytime that they have lost in an election, they have looked at exactly what the Democrats have used to get where they were to succeed. And they have said, how can we improve upon this in a way where we can't be denied a win?
Yes. So in 2010, after the Republicans lost yet another presidential election, and this time to a black man, right? Mm-hmm. What the Republicans did is they came together and they started to draft Project 2025, 15 years beforehand. And they started to come up with an alternative strategy. If they couldn't gain the White House because they didn't have the votes, they didn't have the popular vote, then they were going to gain it at the state level, and they were going to start to plan what they were going to do over the long term. If you think about the Democrats, I've heard of no such thing. Is Nothing. There a Project 2028? Is Pelosi and Schumer and Jeffries and the old establishment coming together and figuring out how to deal with a MAGA world? I haven't heard anything about it. It's like they're incapable of flexibility and being entrepreneurial and being creative and being like thinking outside the box. So there is an absolute absence of imagination and creativity within the Democratic leadership.
Here's what the tell is for me about that. If we had a plan of doing anything innovative and new, it would be somewhat clear to us right now who the Democrats' candidate for president is going to be in 2028.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this week, one of the things that drove me crazy this week, I don't know that you might know, the Democrats got together and suddenly they were talking about who the possible front runners were going to be in 2028. And I wanted to scream the same way I wanted to scream when I watched the Biden Trump debate in 2020.
Right.
Kamala Harris, who I think is a fabulous candidate, but she's unelectable. She's already tried. She failed. She's just like, yeah, I'm thinking of running again. Like,
Yep. And Pete Buttigieg is floating that he's going to run. And here's the thing.
And Shapiro.
Yes.
And I'm sure my wonderful governor
Newsom
is not far behind. And literally, I would not have been surprised if somebody had said, well, and Hillary Clinton's going to throw her hat in the ring. And I'm like, just stop.
Let's break this down for a second, though. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was the Democratic candidate for president. She was the most qualified person in the history of America, undisputed, to run for that office. The most qualified. She lost that election to a reality star.
Yeah. A buffoon.
America made it very clear in that election that they could not stomach having a woman in the highest job in the land. Let's fast forward. We are now at 2024. Biden does terrible in the debate against Trump. Instead of looking back at our history and learning from our mistakes, we didn't say, you know what? America, who has a deep history of racism
and sexism,
couldn't find it in their hearts to vote for Hillary Clinton. And one of the biggest arguments at the time was because she stayed with her man who had cheated on her. And now we're going to try and feed them a Black and Asian woman and think that we're going to be successful without giving anyone an opportunity to be the candidate that would replace Biden. That is not ever going to serve us. So it is not that we are opposed to, I think Kamala would have been an excellent president. I think Hillary would have been an excellent president. I think Pete Buttigieg is one of the most level-headed people, one of the most intelligent people, one of the most well-versed on foreign affairs people, someone who has served our country. I think he would be incredible. I myself am a gay man, and I know that Pete Buttigieg, as a gay man in America that prides itself on being a Christian nation, he is not electable.
I know. So here's the puzzle. I'm going to pose this to you and to our viewers. We have an enormous bench out there, a deep, talented bench of human beings who would run, would be great, would be electable, could be breakout stars. And yet here we are in 2026, and we're still talking about the same fucking candidates.
Yep.
Why? Why won't they let this talented, new, young bench emerge?
And that's the thing. You hit the nail on the head. They won't let, meaning there's an old guard who is in place. And the idea of losing power, I have never had that much power to be in office like that or to have that kind of wealth or that kind of influence. So I can only imagine what it would feel like to know that you are aging and that at the same time there's a possibility that the status quo that you're used to in your life, of the amount of influence that you have, could be eroding and could eventually be gone completely. So it seems to me like those people in those positions, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Chuck Schumers, they're grasping on for dear life, and it is to the detriment of our party. And God rest her soul, loved Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like her reputation should be stained forever. And it should be a warning to others. You know what? I don't care if you loved power. I don't care if you have no hobbies. I don't care if you're like this was your whole identity. You are one human being, and you need to think about the wider the bigger country and the bigger purpose.
And I think, and I will say, I do believe that Ruth thought that she was going to single handedly protect this country.
Yeah, but that's
It's a
egoism,
losing
and
game,
that's
though.
arrogance,
Yeah.
and all of us like to think that we're irreplaceable.
Right.
And every powerful, successful person thinks that on some level they're special, and the reality is you're not.
Yeah.
You're
I mean,
not.
and that's for all of us. And I was having, I think I was having a conversation with my mom, and we were just talking about like regular work. I work a regular job, and if something were to happen to me tomorrow, they would probably the
Yeah.
next day put up the job description on LinkedIn to find someone to replace me.
And the same is true of the Supreme Court justices. Yeah. So, no, I think that the Democrats are
We're short-term thinkers.
uniquely bad at this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Republicans, they also have power, and you would think these same pathologies would hold true there, but they tend to step in line the way you
Right.
said.
And that's the thing is like one of my favorite things is to debate. It like thrills me to no end. You know this. And when I'm having conversation with people with opposing views, if they are part of the Republican Party or part of MAGA, however they want to identify, when it comes down to it, even if it means throwing logic out of the window, they are going to stay in line with the messaging.
Yeah.
They are going to stick with the propaganda that they have been fed by Fox News, by their parents their entire life, by their communities. They believe that if they counter whatever it is that they're supposed to be in line with, that it's going to jeopardize their way of life. That's not, I think, how Democrats look at things. And I think that that's fantastic. I think that we should be open to having conversation. I think we should be open to having our minds changed. If we gather for more information, if we educate ourselves and we learn something new, that's a fantastic thing. But we also have to realize we are constantly in the game.
Yeah.
The game is not stopping in the moments that we're deciding that something else makes more sense or is contrary to what we've historically believed.
Well, and I think what the Democrats get wrong is, there's this saying, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yes.
So in their quest to be perfect, whether that's in terms of taking care of their wide range of constituents, which are very heterogeneous, in their quest to take the high road, in their quest to be perfect on many levels, they give up the good. They end up losing the game. And what you get is not the good. You actually get something like Trump. You get the very bad.
Yes.
And I've told this story before, but I have a friend here in San Diego who's very liberal and has the biggest heart of any person I know. Would literally give you his shoes.
Yeah.
If you needed shoes. And this was back when there was a third-party candidate running. He was more liberal than the Democratic candidate at the time. And I asked him, I was like, "Who are you voting for?" He's just like, "Oh, I'm a Nader guy." And I was like, "No, you're not."
Yeah.
He's like, "Yes, I am." And I said, "You understand that if you vote for Nader, that is a vote for the person you hate the most." And he's just like, "I'm a Nader guy." And I was like, it doesn't matter if you're a Nader guy. That's the perfect. The perfect. But if you vote for Nader, the Democrat is less likely to win, and the Republican is going to win.
Well, even more recently, Jill Stein.
And he just couldn't get he's like, on principle, he's like, I can't vote for the Democrat because I don't like that guy. And I'm certainly not going to vote for the Republican because he's a monster or whatever he put. He's like, but Nader's my guy. And I couldn't get through to him. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I have that conversation. Like I said, more recently in 2016 when Jill Stein was running, and I had friends that were just like, she's the person that I feel like would be best for the country. And I was like, that is fantastic. There is no world where Jill Stein is going to win. And this is a whole nother conversation. But yes, is our party system flawed? And should we eventually, if we can, ever change that? Yes. That's not where we are right now. So it's about getting on the bus that's going to get you closest to your stop rather than not getting on a bus at all.
Yes. Another way to think about this is vote. You should be strategically voting, right? Voting is not black and white. It's not the candidate I like, the candidate I don't like. It should be thinking about the game by which a candidate who is palatable to you wins, right? And that means you're like, okay, if Jill Stein is going to reduce the likelihood that my party wins and increase the likelihood that a far right party comes to power or a party that I really hate comes to power, then don't vote for Jill Stein, even if you love her.
Yep.
Strategic voting is voting for the candidate that is most likely to get a party in power that is closest to your policy preferences.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, I think we can look at what is happening right now in California. We won't stay on it for long because I know all of our viewers are not based in California.
But it's like cuckoo puffs here right now. Well,
we've got so many candidates.
Yeah, it's literally no discipline, chaos. It's like everybody's high. Either everybody's high or everybody's a narcissist. It's like insanity.
That's the other thing of this is that, are you running because it's in the best interest of the country? Is this truly your calling?
No.
Right. And so that's the thing is that if all of the Democrats, the millions of them that we currently have running for governor of California, and we do have jungle elections here, so it could be two of the same or separate, but what usually will end up happening is because there are so many Democrats running, it will end up splintering the votes, and then the Republican candidate, who you actually have no interest in being in this position, ends up getting in that position because instead of thinking about your state or about your country, we're thinking about ego because we're narcissistic. And then we end up with a candidate in office who, under any other circumstance, would have never won that race. But because our party is not rallying around one person who is going to actually have the likelihood of winning this race, we cut off our nose to spite our face because our ego won't let us do anything else.
So you just perfectly described the 2016 Republican primary. So again, we're going to go back to 2016, 10 years ago. The Republican bench for that presidential election was deep.
Right.
Was deep, high quality. You had Jeb Bush, who people thought was probably going to be anointed and win. You had,
Ted Cruz.
Cruz.
Not that we are endorsing any of these people.
But
just
these
saying
were
they had a deep bench.
experienced politicians. Jeb Bush was sort of, a moderate Republican. These were, in terms of people who you could see being president, these were, you could handle these guys.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump, the crazy New Yorker, I'm from New York, everybody in New York knows he's not only insane, but he's a crook. Comes down his golden escalator, and everybody thinks this is a joke. This is great media, right? This is like ratings galore, and he ends up winning. He's not the best. He's the worst candidate. The Republicans don't want him, but because it's chaos, and because there's so many candidates, and because the Republican Party couldn't coalesce around one person, the Republican vote gets dispersed. And and you have this dark horse candidate ending who wins. That's what's happening in California today for the governorship on the Democratic side. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So I mean, it's one of those things that like this is such a simplistic concept that has happened so many times that the Democrats that are holding the most power,
Yes.
if their goal is to win elections so that we are able to pass legislation that is going to benefit everybody in the land, we need a different strategy.
Yes.
Why are we not deploying a different strategy? We have seen what happens so many times.
Okay, so I'm going to answer your question with a question
Okay.
because you know more about this than I do, and I'm struggling with the answer. When I think about, okay, why are Schumer and Pelosi and Jeffries and the rest of the Democratic establishment just doing the same old and not evolving, not innovating? I have two answers to that question. One is either they they cannot let go of their different constituencies. So there's the progressive base of the Democratic Party. There's African American women who literally have been responsible for getting Democrats elected for the last 30 years.
Carrying the nation on their shoulders.
Carrying the nation on the shoulders. There's, X, Y, and Z. And they can't let go of the progressive wing and move to the center where they could capture more votes because they feel a sense of responsibility to those important constituency. That's one explanation. The other explanation is that Schumer and Pelosi and Jeffries and the establishment all benefit from the current system.
Correct.
And the current system is a system of big money and big donors, where money determines who gets elected and what policies get implemented, and the establishment doesn't want to cut those purse strings. So which of those two theories do you think is more true?
I think a little column A, a little column B. I think that I would be willing to bet just as much as Democrats throw fits about dark money going into Republican campaigns, it's happening equally on the Democratic side. So I think that there is a possibility that some of these candidates may be beholden to whoever's filling those pockets. And if they are no longer in office, they are not able to sway things in the favor of their wealthy friends. That's a problem for a lot of them because that is their currency, that is their power in this world.
Yeah.
And what do you do when you no longer have that sway? How do you get the things that you want if you don't have that status, if you don't have that sway? And I would be willing to bet that there's probably a little bit of a thought process of we can't bring in this young bench because we wouldn't be able to control them in the way we would need to get our priorities accomplished.
And what are their priorities?
To be able to continue to, here's it. I believe that money makes the world go round. And I think that that is always going to be the number one priority. I do not think that and I'm only speaking about a very select few who have a lot of influence in the Democratic Party.
And so I keep mentioning those three names.
Yes.
Who it must go beyond that.
I mean, I think I think you have to also look at like who is the head of the DNC, who is the head of the DCCC, there's other organizations that basically control who gets support in Congress whether you're on a red to blue list, which is basically if someone is a incumbent who is a Republican, the DCCC can decide or not decide to put you on this list. If they put you on this list, they believe that you are a blue candidate who has a high likelihood of flipping a red seat. So when that happens and you're on that list, then everyone and their mother in the Democratic Party is going to start pouring into your campaign. There are regions where it's very clear that someone has a high likelihood of being able to flip a seat. However, that group of people in that room, they make you jump through hoops. And I can say that because I've experienced it firsthand.
Give us an example.
You essentially have to meet a ton of metrics financially of raising in your area. They're going to do a ton of polling to see how you're polling, if you're going to be able to, based on the polling, beat the incumbent. And there's some other things that I will say, whatever their interests are during that election, are things that your candidate is going to need to be talking about.
So how does this Swalwell, this guy who sexually assaulted and probably raped numerous women, allegedly, how does he get through this process? Yeah.
Oh, well, so you're only going through that process of being on that list if the seat that you're running for is held by someone of the opposite party. So he wouldn't have to worry about that because Newsom is a Democrat and it's not going to be an issue. Swalwell is not going to survive any of this. He's done.
He's done.
That's over. And you know, I've seen some of the videos that have been put out. Very, very incriminating. There is a high likelihood that he did engage in sexual relations with these women. I don't want to see. This is the thing. I'm not going to say he's guilty, only because let's let the process play out. He's already suspended his campaign for the governorship. But I mean, he's a prime example of, unless, and this is twofold bad. Ruben Gallego, who was one of his close buddies, I mean, flipped on him like that.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened. There has been no court cases. There has been no investigations by congressional committees. Nothing is fully resolved in this matter. You can't do that. And I get that you're distancing yourself for your own political gain. But if we are going to, I mean, look at how the Republican Party galvanizes around someone who has been accused of committing sexual assault.
Yeah.
I'm not saying those people should be protected, so I don't want my words to be misconstrued. What I am saying is, number one, their line is always, well, we'll have to see how this all plays out. If there is not evidence to prove that Eric Swalwell did what he's being accused of, then he would have to be acquitted if there were actually charges pressed against him. So who is the Democratic Party to say that we are on such a moral high ground that we're going to determine whether or not you get to have a political career anymore in this country? And what you're doing at the same time is we're losing a congressional seat. We're losing our front runner for governor. And like I said, if it came to be proven that these accusations were true, that's one thing. But this is where I have a problem with the Democratic Party, because I'm like, are we looking at the big picture? We are so focused on the immediate.
Okay, but what if the Democrats are being strategic here? And okay, here's like my husband's political scientist. I am ready for this. And we were talking about Swalwell last night, and he's an expert on American politics, and he's like, I think the Democrats leaked this information.
I 100% agree.
And they want Swalwell out, but they want Swalwell out because in this crazy jungle primary, if he's the front runner, but in a really wide bench, I think he was getting like 17% of the vote, which is not a lot. That in that scenario, the two Republicans could actually win. But if you get rid of him and the Democrats and those votes then can go to one of the remaining ones, the Democrats have a better chance of winning. So I was like, oh my God, this sounds like something that's more strategic than the Democrats would do, but it would be a smart strategy.
It's 100% plausible, and I don't think he's wrong.
Okay.
So when this first happened, I immediately was like, oh, someone up top on the Democratic side is stirring the pot again. I agree with that theory.
Okay.
I do think that Katie Porter was a very, very strong candidate when this race started.
Oh, I know. But
Katie Porter had a video come out of her treating her staffer terribly and just having overall bad behavior.
Yeah.
One thing that the American public does not like to consume is a woman who is being rude or being not demure or, not basically. I mean, because the reality is, if a video came out like of Trump, it would be like, oh, he's a man, he's a da-da-da, Anyway, this essentially tanked her campaign.
Yeah.
And then other staff started coming out saying that, she's this horrible person and horrible to work for and whatever.
And women, if anything, have to be likable.
Yes, agreed. But so you have her who is doing well. We have Swalwell who's entered. We've got Tom Steyer, who is a billionaire who people just aren't a fan of.
But he's not a bad candidate, which is he's so interesting because he's not a bad candidate. I think he wants to do the right thing, and yet, like,
he's cringy.
Nobody likes
him.
He's
cringy. He's like if Mark Zuckerberg were to run for something, and it's like you've got people that have the resources, that have great ideas, that have done incredible things in their life, and there are some people that just don't have that je ne sais quoi.
It's like JD Vance. Why JD Vance is going to probably disappear, in a couple of years. We'll never see him again. Thank God.
We'll have a longer conversation about that on another episode. But to get back to your point of what Zoli was saying is that I do think that this was orchestrated. I do think that this is why this is so problematic for me, because I do not think that this year is the first time that the higher ups in the party knew that this information existed about Eric Swalwell. The victims that are alleging these allegations are from, I think, starting in like 2016, 2017, 2018. So it's been quite a few years.
Yeah.
His behavior has been known for a long time to not be great, but it wasn't something that was like assault.
Yeah.
So my theory is that they have known about this for a while.
I agree.
For the last 8 years, he has been serving their purpose. He has done what has needed to be done to serve them.
And what is that?
I don't know. But whatever. No, I don't.
Yeah.
But whatever their agenda was, he was a soldier.
He knows that they have this information on him and they're holding it. So he's just going to do it.
And he might not even know that they had the information, but they had they knew this information. Yeah. And they knew that Republicans also had this information. The Republicans might have gotten it more recently. What the Republicans actually planned to do was have Eric Swalwell get the nomination and then release it during the general election, and then the Republican is governor of California.
Oh my God. I have so many questions. Like, Why does a guy like Swalwell think he has a chance if he has that information? Like, why?
Because
Like,
he is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white man in
Oh, yeah.
America who
Yeah.
has had pretty much
He's
success
gotten
on
away
with
with
whatever he's
everything.
done and
Yeah.
has not had to be held accountable.
Oh my God.
I mean, if you really go back a little bit further, he is the same congressman who was accused of having relations with a Chinese spy
Oh my
years
God.
ago.
He's the same guy.
Yes. And is still sitting in his office. Well, maybe not
Again,
tonight,
we've talked
but
about this in the past, honeypots. Like, really, the most effective way to have somebody by the balls, figuratively, is to plant
a temptress.
a temptress
Yeah.
on them, and you'd think this, like, you'd think they'd know, and you'd think they'd be stronger, but no, it's still the easiest way. Shocking.
Yeah. So here's the thing is that the Democrats in this situation, they are thinking 3 steps ahead. But we have to remember the Republicans are thinking 20 steps ahead. They are thinking years and years and years down the line. It's the way that the chessboard is set up. It's so simple to see that let's make the Democrats think that all we need is to have a Republican governor in California. Then Trump's agenda is going to be easier to push through with that Republican governor. I mean, think about the nightmare and the headache that Gavin Newsom has caused for President Trump.
Oh.
So let's dangle this little carrot and say we got this governor's race coming. We know that they know that we know about Eric Swalwell. They're going to think that they're putting out this fire and they're being so strategic and they're ahead of us in this game. It's not reality.
Yeah.
They've already thought 5 steps ahead of that.
Okay, so what's it going to take to disrupt all of this? And let's talk about the hold the Democratic establishment has. What's it going to take to finally disrupt the Schumer, Pelosi, Jeffries lock on anointing the next candidates? What's it going to take to get them to unite on a transformational candidate that will be necessary to break the MAGA era?
If only you could see the wheels spinning in my head of how I can make what I'm about to say PC and palatable. We have to kneecap the people in power on the Democratic side.
How do you do that?
Again, processing before it comes out. You have to have something strong enough to persuade the people in those positions to move out of the way. There is a specific way that the Republicans do it, and that is called blackmail.
I was going to say, I mean, the way they did it with Biden is they had him go on national television and reveal his infirmity.
Yeah. And so, here's the thing. I like to try to stay above the fray, but when it is for the greater good, I have no problem getting in the gutter. And the Democratic Party needs to take up that stance.
So who's going to do that?
That's the thing, is that you don't have a lot of Democrats that are in a position to challenge the people in those positions of power. I mean, you would really have to get a coalition of congressmen and women, senators, House representatives. I mean, right now, it sounds as difficult as it would be to invoke the 25th Amendment, which is something that, it's not going to happen.
So it sounds like we'd have to suffer another devastating defeat.
The thing is, though, we can't afford that right now.
We can't.
Right.
We can't.
With the state of our democracy, we can't afford that.
Who's going to do it?
So this is where I feel like there has to
George
be...
Clooney. George.
Here's the thing.
Come on, we're talking to you. We need you.
People are tired of celebrity influence in politics. Here's the thing I will say about that, though. I don't agree with that. They are human beings who
I
they're
know.
Americans. They live in this country. They deserve to have a voice as much as anybody else. There is something, though, that is unrelatable about celebrities
Yeah.
voicing their opinion in an election. Like I said, I don't feel like it's valid. It's similar to, I'll give a little behind the scenes scoop. We were talking to someone who was contemplating being one of our producers on this show. And he told us, he gave us some advice that we should not give our background. I should not say the level of education I have. You should not say who you've worked with previously because it's going to make us not relatable.
Oh. Well, I don't
You
know.
know, and I think in the same regard, not being relatable is not a disqualifier for me. Being a rapist, being a pedophile, being someone who,
I mean, we all, yeah. I mean, the MAGA base knows Trump's background, and it doesn't seem to disqualify him.
right. So here's the thing that I would say: if you are someone who tends to vote Democrat or leans progressive, don't spend too much time trying to persuade people over to the Democratic Party. Unless you have a Republican who is relatively moderate, um, it's going to be a losing battle. And who you're really going to need to focus on are the people who are independents, the people who are Democrats, but say, oh, Hillary's just as evil as Trump, so I can't vote for either, or I'm going to vote for the Jill Steins or the Ralph Naders of the world. Those conversations are worth having. If you can have that conversation and you can talk about the bigger picture, you can talk about getting behind someone who has a viability of winning and is more aligned with your values than the candidate who is not. That's how we win these
Yeah.
elections.
Yeah. And I guess I'll take a slightly more macro view because that's what I tend to do and just say, all of, the voters who are going to determine the midterms and 2028 moving forward are the younger generation.
Yes.
If we're going to have big turnout, it's going to come from new voters, younger voters, and demand generational change. If somebody says, well, this person has been on the armed service, has been on these important committees, and they're powerful and influential, and it doesn't matter that they're 80 or 85, the answer is it does matter. It actually does matter. And the best people for our country at this moment are not octogenarians. They just aren't. They're younger people who know who feel the pain of what's going on, who are living the changes and the challenges, and they need to be represented by people who are of the same generation. So
Yes.
for the Schumers and the Pelosi's, as much as I love them and I love what they've done in the past, their time is up.
Yeah, I will say this too. Young people are not dumb. They know that Hakeem Jeffries is not really running things from his seat. They know that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, like that, those folks are still behind the scenes pulling all the strings. They're not naive. So if we actually want to be able to make a difference, like Barb said, we need to have people who speak like them, who have experiences that they've had, that they feel like is going to understand who they are and is going to truly represent them. So you can say that, AOC is too progressive. Guess what? She connects with that generation.
Well, and to be honest, she's from the Bronx,
Yeah.
right? Her constituency is progressive,
Right.
Mom Donnie. Is he a politician for America? No, but he's a great politician from New York because
Yes.
New York is a very progressive place. So think generationally. A young person emerging from Iowa or Nebraska or Idaho or New Mexico or Colorado will represent their people where they are. they don't have to be progressive. Of course, they wouldn't be if their constituency isn't progressive. They shouldn't be.
Right.
So young does not mean progressive. It just happens that these sort of breakout stars, young generations, have come from progressive places, but they could just as well come from Oklahoma.
And I will say, on a national level, Westmore, Democratic Party, get this man out in front of the American public. We need to get to know him. America needs to know about his family, about his background, everything we can do to get to know this man. Start doing it. Don't focus so much on things that are probably already set in stone, whether it comes to the midterm elections or things a little outside of that. Look further ahead. There are, like you said before, we have a deep bench. We have talent. We have people that will connect with Americans just like Obama did. Start using your bench and get ready to leave coaching. We're good.
Yeah.
You've done your time. You've served us well. You're getting to a Bader Ginsburg point where your mark on history is going to be stained if you will not allow the next generation to move into place. The other thing we have to get past is having this narrative that we can only elect a white man anymore. It is something that is exhausting and played out. And the reason that we have this narrative is because we have the same people in power that told us we can only elect a white man. So,
although Isaiah, I feel like if I'm not sure we can elect a woman, white or non-white. There's no evidence that we can do that.
I'm 100% not going to disagree with you on that, because if you think about when it came down to voting rights, who got rights before women?
Yeah.
Black men.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
I still think.
So maybe the narrative is we can elect men.
I mean, that seems to be where we are right now. I just feel like we are, as a society, being fed this line that even as Democrats who know that we have incredible Black, Asian, Mexican, Native American, like all these different backgrounds of people with all these different lived experiences who would be incredible at leading our nation. We have been pushed into a corner because of the last few elections to feel like we're in a place where only white men are electable.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
But to be honest, I'm not sure how many elections I want to risk trying to get the first woman elected or trying to get the first.
Well, then let's try to get another person of color elected. I feel like that'd be a start.
Yeah. Okay, Westmore. There we go, Westmore. But
yeah.
I would like, before I die, and I don't have, I'm old.
You have a lot of time left, Barb.
But I would like to see a fucking woman elected in the greatest country in the world.
I agree. It's been done in many other countries in the world. So I mean, we should be able to get our stuff together.
Okay. Before I die.